welcome all to the Ride for California signing day extravaganza breakdown, whatever you may call this thing. But we're here. We wanted to take a couple days to think about our recruits, watch their tape, do all that good stuff. And now we're here to talk about the recruits, talk it through it with you guys. If you're here watching live, and answer any questions, or you can not only questions but throw in your takes, and so on and so forth. So yeah, we're here, baby. It is recruiting analysis time. I am one of the hosts for this evening, Rob. Of course, you may know me from the Golden Bear Cast, and also all of our writers. Peter joins us all the way from the East Coast. Christopher, I believe, from the Midwest. And Nick, our editor-in-chief up in Northern California with me. Everyone is here.
Everybody.
We are here. 25 people are watching us talk about recruiting. Yes.
From all three time zones of the continental United States.
Yes. So here's the deal. We're going to go through all the recruits one by one. We're going to listen to what the coaches said about the recruits too, and just break it down. All of our writers have written some pros, cons analysis about all of our recruits. We'll talk about all of that. If we need to watch their huddle tape, I will pull it up and show it on the screen so all of us can kind of watch if there's any particular guys we need to talk about and particular things we want to touch on. Nick did some analysis on some of those guys. I did analysis on some of those guys. Peter just perennially follows everything recruiting wise, so I'm pretty sure he's written a blurb on everyone inside his head. And Christopher is going in blind. He is our double blind study. Like, he is going to be the one that questions us about if we actually watch the tape and if we're not idiots. So Christopher is our barometer here.
I am the idiot in chief for tonight.
I'm just here to hype the whole team up. We're going 15-0 national championship. Book your tickets to whichever bowl it is because we're bringing back home. No,
You just ensured that each of the next 4 seasons will have all the bowls canceled now.
It's okay. We'll eat from plates.
Blame Peter. At Peter, blame Peter. But yeah, we'll get right to it. So here we go, gents. The Cal football recruiting class. Oh, it's not a class of 2020. It's actually the class of 2021. That is my bad. That's starting off with on a great note. Holy crap, man. This is awesome.
So I used to be in consulting, and this is called a deck, and you have already screwed up.
I have already screwed it up. I have already screwed it up over the 15 people that are watching currently on live stream. So here we go. Let's I mixed the order up. So these guys don't know which guys we're going to talk about, which group we're going to talk about first and all that, but we're going to go back and forth between the offense and the defense just to make it a little more interesting throughout the day. So here we go. First one up is the offensive line. And I believe, Nick, you did most of the work on the offensive line. All 3 guys, you did.
Yeah, so as a amateur talent scout, and by that I mean I've literally never done it before and have absolutely no expertise in doing so, I decided let's take on entire position groups so at least I can compare the players to each other. And decided to take on the offensive line because I'm particularly unqualified to evaluate them.
How long have you been writing for the site?
Well, I've been blogging about Cal sports for more than a decade, but my previous attempts at talent evaluation at the high school level were below par.
Yeah, and this is Nick's first foray into it. So,
yeah.
Woo-hoo! All right, Nick, give me your initial thoughts on the group as a whole. Like, we'll go into the individuals, but what do you think about the 3 guys in comparison to maybe some of the guys on the team and where they fit in?
Well, I mean, obviously the size is going to stand out. By that I mean like height above all. Like, these guys are all really tall, and so I think one of the big questions, offensive line. So, as a heads up, I'm going to be leaning on sort of like the talent development these positions, as they tend to go like nationwide. And so like offensive line is one of the talent groups or position groups that's really hard to project over time, because one of the big questions is how do players adapt when they add weight at the college level? Some players add weight and they become stronger, or they add that weight but maintain their mobility and their ability to move laterally. Other players add that weight and maybe lose that mobility, or they can't add weight. It's a position group that it's really hard to project compared to others where it's a little more straightforward. So you like to see the fact that Cal brought in 3 guys with the size and the frame that they should be able to add weight if they need to. The guy that I'm most excited about on the line is Lange, because he's already has the size and the weight that you want to see on the offensive line. And then when you look at his tape, he's really nimble and can move well despite that. But I guess we could save that as we go through each guy one by one.
Yeah, I think you're on point there. So let's get started. Let's start with I need to do this alt tab stuff, to move the slides. Let's start with Bastian Swinney. So let's listen in on what Angus McClure has to say about Bastian Swinney, and then we'll get going. Oh, did not need to open that. Oh, that's upsetting. I hate how this thing is so huge. Like, why is this toolbar so big? Like, why do I just want to click that video? And it won't let
go
me.
down and click exit.
Oh, this is upsetting. All right.
Bastian's the type of young man that is a person who could play multiple.
See, it doesn't do it. All right. Well, whatever. I'll just play it this way. Can you guys hear the audio?
Bastian's the type of young man that is a person who could play multiple positions for us. I loved watching his tape after his junior year. Was very intrigued with him. I flew back to Minnesota to watch him play basketball, and that's where I saw the versatility in him as an athlete. Getting to know Bastian, he's a sharp guy. He has a high football IQ, and really, really excited to get him here this spring. Bastian is a very outgoing guy. He's got a big personality. He'll do a great job in the Cal community, the Bay Area community. He currently works as a youth coach in the off season, so he's very much locked into elementary, middle school kids. Great leader, and has a lot of respect from his teammates.
Okay, so that's I think Angus McClure did a real good job pretty much explaining him. But just to go through some of the stuff, Bastian Swinney, 3-star, unanimously across both of the big recruiting sites, listed at offensive guard, 6'6", 275, hails from Edina High School in Minneapolis, Minnesota. On 247, their national recruiting analyst, Alan True, projects him to be a unrestricted or undrafted free agent, but the comparison goes to San Francisco 49ers offensive lineman Justin Skule.
Wow, they're doing pro projections for high school players, huh?
Right, and
very bold.
the evaluation came in on March 25th, 2020. Let me read you a little bit of this. Comes across as a big than listed size, well-balanced frame, big all the way through and can carry more weight, has played at a good high school program and improved a lot between sophomore and junior year. Dominant run blocker, gets off his stance with very good pad level and finishes his blocks. Plays with tenacity. Lateral movement is also very good.
Quick note, the official Cal website already has him at 6'6", 290. So
Okay.
he's been gaining weight as, during the off season.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is going to be a theme throughout is how much we really know about these guys because of the bizarro senior season they've all had to deal with. So, like, some of these guys may have developed in ways athletically that we're just not going to see either on tape or in any sort of recorded numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how I'm. Wilcox will always emphasize getting players who love football, not being football players. Nevertheless, they're 18-year-olds, so not having the discipline of going to practice, going to school, working out with their teammates, it could, we don't know what's going to happen. And projecting anything, I always find it funny that 24/7 is trying to project to, do comparisons with NFL players. Like even NFL scouts scouting 5-year starters at SEC programs struggle making comparisons. So it's just kind of funny that they're like, oh yeah, this guy's Jason School, which backup left tackle for the Niners. So.
Yeah. So in terms of what I saw on tape for Swinney, I liked the versatility that we saw from him, and that he was showing that versatility actually at the guard position, because a lot of times what you see with high school line recruits is that they all get shuffled to play tackle because obviously they're going to be the best player on their high school team, and that's usually where you put the best guy. So it can sometimes be hard to scout offensive or interior linemen because they're usually not actually playing those spots. But he played guard at his high school, so there's a lot of versatility where, sometimes he's trying to get upfield to block a linebacker, sometimes he's pulling out the side on some sort of power play. There's more versatility, and he looks comfortable in that than you would see from a typical high school recruit. So that's a nice positive. He should be able to, hopefully he doesn't need to play immediately, but he's probably more immediately ready than many other offensive line recruits might otherwise be, because he's got experience in the interior of the line.
Anything else to add, Peter or Christopher? Christopher, you got any questions about Bastion?
Oh, I always have questions. But Peter, I'll let you go first. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
So looking at the depth chart itself, right? We, 6'6" is already taller than most of our linemen, right? So that's additional height, just size. 6'6" is also not very prototypical for guard or center, because when you create the pocket for drop back passing, your quarterback needs to look past your lineman, right, to throw the ball. And the taller the lineman, the harder it is, because there is a bigger differential between the quarterback's height and the lineman's height to see the the plays developing up front. So even though he's an offensive guard at 6'6", the guards we've had so far, Del Toso 6'4", Mettauer 6'4", Sindrich 6'4", Gentle Williams, I don't think he played, Putasi 6'4", Briscoe 6'4", that's another 2 inches, which can add up, and can pose some problems if our quarterback might be on the shorter side. Like, hold up, who was it? Sorry, Kai Milner. Yeah, 6'2" Kai Milner. That could be an indication that he might go on the outside, but if he stays inside, it could be a problem in the passing game.
All right, my questions. You ready? No, they're not. They're easy for sure. So where do you see Bastion contributing the most in the next 2 years?
Honestly, I would say with the offensive line, we'll see who ends up returning from this year's team. It sounds like maybe Curran is more likely to leave, but Safel is probably staying. But Cal played so many guys on the offensive line. It has so many returning players who aren't necessarily going to be immediately seniors. They have the luxury of, for sure, redshirting all of the offensive linemen from this year's class, and probably giving them at least 2 years to develop. If any one of them is so immediately great that they justify playing time as a redshirt freshman, wonderful. But I would be surprised if we saw any of these guys on the field in the next 2 years, unless they just blow up as players in practice.
Yeah. I mean, they might get some time as special team, because we saw how the lack of depth on OL, DL, right, and field goal protection can impact just being competency of the special teams unit. So I can see them playing there. But I agree with Nick. We have had a lot of guys rotate in and out, have experience on the 2 deep. And besides Curhan, I don't think anybody else is leaving. Mike Safel, I don't think he's leaving either. So we're going to have most of our line back with a real 2 deep. So, they're not playing unless they're, blowing Brett Johnson off the ball, which I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon.
All right, let's move on to the other offensive lineman. We got our next one.
Rob, you don't have ad block.
I don't know. This is weird. All right, now next one, Dylan Yemtegard. I'm gonna butcher his name until I actually get the pronunciation guide in front of me. But Dylan is one of the interesting cases, at least for me, because he was one of those under the radar guys. But then you look at his measurables and you look at his tape, and you're like, how was he not more heavily recruited? So he's a 3-star on 247, 2-star on Rivals, which I think he should definitely be at least a consensus 3-star. They're listing him offensive guard, 6'4", 270 from Yelm, Washington. I think one of our watchers right now said, Salish Bear. There's a guy from O-line from Yelm, and he says here, which is a semi-rural community not far from Olympia, Washington. A kid going there from Cal, very, very big deal, as the town has poor schools. So he's definitely a success story from that city. So let's take a look at what Angus McClure had to say.
Can't hear it, Rob.
Oh, really? Oh, well.
I mean, I can summarize because my recollection is that most of it was talking about how physical he is, which does jump out of the tape.
That's strange. But go ahead, Nick. Talk us through Dylan.
So what I was trying to figure out watching his tape is what is the talent differential like with the high school that he plays at versus the teams he was playing against? Because from just a pure physically dominant perspective, he looked the most overpowering of all the 3 offensive linemen. And I suspect that some of that probably has to do with the competition level faced. I was trying to understand Washington high school levels. It seems like he's at a smaller school. He's probably playing other smaller schools because he was bullying guys around in the run game. Just, shoving guys into the ground and holding them down. And, it was not competitive, and that might speak both to his physical strength and the fact that maybe he wasn't going up against spectacular competition. As is more often the case, he was playing tackled primarily, even though Cal sees him as a guard. So I think that he probably, luckily, like all these other guys, he'll have a couple of years to develop physically. He would probably need to spend some strength and conditioning time, development in terms of playing interior versus as a tackle position. But just the sheer physical instinctualism to him makes him intriguing.
Yeah, he's listed at Cal at 305 pounds already, 305 pounds, 6'4", which would put him on the top third of the heaviest linemen that we already have on the roster. He plays very nasty, like I said, pushes people to the ground. Which is it level competition, or is he actually that dominant? I think was it Trace at Rival said that Dylan's one of those guys who have probably shot up the boards for a lot of schools if there was camp and the standard usual circus of college football recruiting. Side note: he's also the first player from his high school to play in a Pac-12 school.
Also, probably the best last name in the class.
Yemtegard.
Certainly, if you're into Dutch last names, is my presumption there.
Or Nordic.
Possibly, yeah. Something along those lines.
Salish Bear here says there are good teams around here. I think he's talking about the school, Yelm, Washington, but not LA competition. So, I think that's on the same line as what Nick was saying.
So, Rob, what stands out to you in particular about Dylan here? Because I think you mentioned he's one of your favorites here.
He is one of my favorites just because of how aggressive he is when he is blocking. And Nick already talked about that. I think that's the biggest thing. The only concern I have is the same concern that Peter and Nick share, which is it him being dominant or is it the competition he's playing against and the guys that he's playing against? So Well, it remains to be seen, but I don't mind this type of recruit because it's kind of a diamond in the rough, and you're trying to see if you can polish up that diamond. But you also don't really need him to pan out immediately, just because as Nick was saying, there's so much depth there for the next year and a half to 2 years that you don't really need him to come along quickly. So I'm on board.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move
Oh yeah.
to
Last
go
note: both Sweeney and Jemtegard are actually two-sport athletes, which a lot of scouts in the NFL always look at. What makes a good football player, and
Right.
nearly one of the things they agree on, Daniel Jeremiah and Booker Brooks, is that being two-sport athletes, especially on the line, always helps in body control and
Yep.
just training different skill sets. So Sweeney was a basketball player. Can you
Yep.
imagine? Imagine going against a 6'6" guy who's 275 pounds and trying to post him up. And Jemtegard was a track athlete at shot put.
Okay.
Isn't that what Zion registered at the combine? 6'6", 275.
I think
Zion
you're right.
Williamson?
Yeah, I think you're right.
What a monstrous
Yeah.
size to feed.
Yeah,
all-
try posting
yeah.
up a guy who's physically comparable to Zion as Williamson in high school. Good luck,
Yeah. I do know that Coach Wilcox and the staff has put an emphasis on so when they recruit, and we got to listen to this when we did like a football 101 thing with them, is when they're writing up their little document on each player, there's a column that's like for plus or extras, which accounts for how many, like, do they play any other sports? Like, do they do anything outside of football? And things that they think could translate into like their work ethic or their body control and things like that. So like guys who play basketball or guys who play rugby or guys who play or who are wrestlers, like they actually encourage their target recruits to go out and do more than one sport. They're not one of the coaches that are like, don't injure yourself playing another sport, like save yourself for football. They're one of those guys that pushes for, hey, go do two sports. Like, and that's why I think they're more willing to let guys be double sport athletes when they come to Cal too. Because we've seen a bunch of guys play baseball and play football. We've also seen guys do track and field and play football. Other guys do football and rugby. Like we've seen it all around. And so I think they're looking for those types of guys. And you can clearly see it throughout all of these recruits that they're multi-sport athletes. But we move on.
Loved watching Dylan's tape.
Oh, now he's playing.
Now okay, see, there it worked. All right, next one. I don't know how to say his name. Nick, are you sure it's Lang? Lange?
No, it could be Lange. I don't. Well, we can see what our coach says. I don't know.
I don't know if he'll actually say his name. I think he'll just say Ryan.
Yeah.
But he is a consensus 3-star from 247 in Rivals, listed at offensive tackle. His scout page listed him at 6'6", 330. He's a local Bay Area kid from Pittsburgh, CA. So let's listen in on what Angus had to say about him, and then we'll get going.
So I've recruited Ryan for a long time. He's right here in the Bay Area. He's a big physical presence, and he's the type of young man that's going to bring physicality to the offensive line here at Cal. You know, he's developed this big frame, and he's going to be a big part of what we're doing here in spring football. He has a high level of intelligence. He has a high football IQ. He loves football. He loves to compete. He'll fit right in with the offensive line here. He already has a relationship with some of our current players, especially with Mello. And he's a natural. He's been around the Cal football program his entire life. He's been to Memorial Stadium multiple times, and he's going to love wearing the blue and gold.
I think that's awesome. That's why I love recruiting the Bay Area kids, right? Is they have memories here beyond like coming to camp and things like that. They have memories of going to football games. And I think you gotta tap into that nostalgia if you want a little bit of an edge to do so. So
The Jared Goff story.
yeah, exactly.
So
All right.
hopefully the team starts creating some nostalgia.
Please.
I mean,
please, for the guy that's coming along, for that 8-year-old who's coming in 10 years.
I mean, 10 years from now, there'll be a guy saying, like, I remember when Chase Garbers ran the ball.
I was at that big game when Chase won it for us. Yep.
Yep.
That's exactly what's going to happen. Well, Nick, give us your thoughts on Ryan.
So to me, what clearly stood out was pass blocking. His team threw the ball well. 5 minutes of highlights, so who knows precisely what their team's offense was, but it was him matching up one-on-one on the outside and stoning anybody who came his way. And it wasn't just, I don't think, like his sheer size, although obviously 6'6", 330 is like prototypical left tackle ideal size. He had good lateral movement, good instincts, good use of his hands.
Mm-hmm.
You liked the way his feet moved. Everything you saw on tape made you think that this is a guy who could handle blocking as a left tackle in the Pac-12, which is a super valuable thing. That really stood out. On the potential cons, his tape did not have nearly as much run blocking on it. And what they tended to show was like him sort of diving inside to try to seal off the edge and just using his sheer size and physical strength, which is fine, but maybe not a ton of variety. So I don't know like how much experience, reps, variety he has to his run blocking technique yet. So that's maybe more of a question mark. We just haven't really seen it yet, but it just seems like it's something that if he has the IQ the coaches say he has, he clearly has the size. It feels like he should be more than a 3-star just from what I've seen.
So as you said, you're highest on him out of the 3 guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before we wrap up the offensive line part, Peter or Christopher, you got any thoughts or questions on the 3 guys?
I mean, looking at his measurable 6'6", would make him, again, one of the tallest linemen we have, but also one of the heaviest players, period. He would be 3rd by weight on the depth chart right now, coming in as a true freshman, right the same size as Jake Curhan. Now, of course, some of the weight might be quote-unquote bad weight, so it's up to Torrey Beckton to figure, and the player and the Angus McClure to figure out what body composition and weight these guys should be playing, 2-3 years from now. But yeah, there is evidence here that the guy can put out, can put on 330 pounds and play dominantly enough to get a Pac-12, multiple Power 5 offers, including one from USC.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the defensive line. Yes. I am so excited to talk about the defensive line. I think I did most of the defensive line guys, if I'm not mistaken here. I did all of them. So yeah, Cal has him at 6'7" on the video. Even better. If Ryan is 6'7", oh Lord. That is a massive human being. I am afraid to talk. Actually, offensive linemen are generally nice guys when you talk to them. So yeah, but we'll see. We're talking about the defensive line. All right, guys. Since I guess I'm the one who did most of it, so you're gonna have to ask me the questions or anything that you want to know. But I guess my thoughts on the defensive line before we delve into it is this might be the most talented group of defensive linemen we have recruited in quite some time. No, I don't know if there's like a star recruit on the defensive line, like like for the offense, we'll talk about him later, is J. Michael Sturdivant. Like he is like the crown jewel of the offensive side of the ball because you already know of what he's going to do and deliver. But I don't know if there's that type of guy on the defensive line, but I do know that all of these guys will be contributors at some point in their career, whether it comes in their freshman year or their sophomore, junior, or senior year. All 4 will be contributors on this roster. Like I firmly believe all of them. So those are my thoughts. We'll start with Mr. Miles Williams. So let's listen in on what Coach Browning had to say.
Miles, again, the combination of his athleticism and his size, his length really jumped off the tape. Very, very explosive athlete. I think the thing about Miles that maybe a lot of people don't know is Miles has only played 3 years of football, and he is extremely developed already in terms of his knowledge of his position, and does a lot of things really natural, rushing the passer, just things you look for, being able to bend, turn the corner, how he uses his hands, how he finishes rushes. So again, I'm extremely excited about his future and his development as a football player, and another guy, another versatile piece for us up front that we can play out on the edge and we can play inside in different packages. Just really excited to have him here.
All right. So that's actually pretty cool because I actually haven't watched these videos on the players by the coaches. And it actually feels nice when what you wrote pretty much coincides with what the coaches sees. It's a nice feeling. But here we go. Here's what I had on Miles Williams tape. Solid tackling, long and rangy defensive end. Very good first step. Explodes off the snap. Very efficient with his swing move. And he knows how to use his arms and height very, very well to swat away blockers' engagements. That was very, very clear on his videos where you see the offensive lineman come to engage and he swats because his arm is so long. He like swats it down. And like he doesn't swat them down by using his hands. He's like using his forearms to swat down their hands, and he's already past them. So it's crazy. He's very good in pursuit. Has some really good speed to get in pursuit. On option plays, the one thing and some negatives here. On option plays, he doesn't really accelerate until he's sure of where the ball is, and it makes sense to do that in high school ball when you're probably one of the most athletic guys on the field. But it is curious to see how that's going to translate when he gets to the next level where guys are going to be accelerating a lot faster than he's used to. And I guess that comes with him catching up to the speed of the game. And if he's able to do that, or if he has to be a little bit more instinctual in order to do so. So he's a plus in the pass rush and the run game, but there's also not a lot of tape of him defending in coverage and dropping in his zone, which he might not have to do that often in this defense because I'm assuming he's probably going to play that Cam Good type of role. But at the same time, he's going to be asked to cover the flat, and he's going to be asked to drop into coverage every once in a while because that's just how this defense goes with the amount of disguises and coverages and blitz schemes that we have. So that's the only issue is that there's no tape on him, and whether that means they didn't ask him to do that or he wasn't good at it and it's not in his tape, that remains to be seen. So that's my take on Miles Williams, who is 6'3", 250. Like, woof.
Yeah, 6'5", 6'3", 250 is like the only player on the outside, so outside linebacker that would be roughly his sizes. Tevin Paul and Braxton Croto, right? Both of them 250 dudes. They're the big ends who usually anchor on the strong side of the formation. The other side is Cam Good and his pass rush skills. And Browning did mention that they were planning to play him both inside and outside, so defensive end. But in order to play defensive end in our scheme, you got to be 280, 290, which is Brent Johnson, Jadian Roberts size. So I'm curious to see how they're going to approach just his body transformation necessary to play in the Pac. Are you going to have him slim down to play on the outside? Or are they going to have him bulk up to play inside? Or are they going to say, watch what Tevin Paul is doing. Watch what Braxton Croto is doing. That's going to be your job, which then means that he might not have to drop back into lanes as often because usually that end just anchors in and he's the fourth rusher.
Yeah,
run blocker.
Yeah, the one thing that's definitely a plus with that is if he's rushing the passer, you definitely see, as I talked about, the length of his arms, which is going to be huge for him when he's coming off the edge and being able to bat down or even just get his hands up in the air into those quick passes out into the flat. And that's going to be very disruptive. And at least that's definitely a plus if he were to get initial snaps right away. But that's my thing on Miles Williams. Y'all got any other questions about Miles before we move on?
I think.
Oh, Nick's muted.
I'm going to have the same question about all of our front seven
All right.
guys. And since I haven't had the chance to review any of their tape yet, it's going to be Like, what role are they eventually going to
Mhm.
fall into? Because you talked about like there's a lot of specificity to nose guard
Mhm.
versus true DE versus outside linebacker rush, outside linebacker more of a DE
Yeah.
hybrid. So it's nice to have the variety across these guys just to fit them into the
Yeah.
puzzle.
I mean, it's clear that Miles can both play with his hands in the dirt and could probably play standing up. It's just a matter of the coverage aspect of it, as we said. So, but if he plays inside and out, depending on, are we playing an odd front? Are we playing an even front? Like that'll change. But he's definitely one of those guys that I'm excited to see, like in a couple years when he has put on a little bit more weight. Because clearly, if they are putting him on the line, he's going to need that extra weight to bully some of the bigger offensive tackles around. But all right, we move on to, let's see, who we moved on to. Caleb and Larms Orr. Oh, I love this kid. I absolutely love this kid. But before we dive into that, he's 247 and Rivals rate him both as a 3-star. I think he should be a borderline 4-star, to be honest, just from his tape. He's also listed as a weak side defensive end, 6'3", 222, and also another Bay Area kid, Moreau Catholic in Hayward, California. So let's get Tim DeRuyter's take on Caleb.
Well, I think the key word for him is versatility. He's a long, athletic guy who's demonstrated pass rush value off the edge. He's played some inside. He can really be a multi-tool guy for us. He's a guy that really plays hard, chases the ball. Coach Sherman and I are going to have a little bit of a combination fight to find out where he's going on. We want to keep Bay Area guys right here, so the fact that we've got him to lock in and come play for the Bears in front of his friends and family and hopefully inspire other Bay Area guys to stay right here and accomplish all their goals.
Caleb's another linebacker that we're lucky enough to add in the class that gives us an extreme amount of versatility. He plays all over the field for his high school. He's got good size. He's very athletic, and he's going to give us the flexibility, like I said, of playing multiple positions and giving us the flexibility within our defense to be very multiple. Getting to know his family, his mother came with him, and she's a wonderful woman and a great parent, and they're all Cal through and through.
All right. So my thing on Caleb, he's definitely a plus defender. He's at disengaging and pursuit. So he's already going to be good off the bat in run defense. He honestly, from the tape, it's hard to judge, right? Just off the tape, but from what I saw, he easily could be the fastest defensive end outside linebacker guy that we have on the roster, just in terms of pure speed. He has very quick recognition of plays. He's very smart. He knows exactly where the ball's going as soon as it snaps. He doesn't over pursue, which is very, very nice. He's very savvy with his change of pace, and he is very explosive with that as well. So he'll take 2 steps into the backfield, and you think he's not going to catch up to you, and then he'll just explode to the running back or explode to the quarterback, especially on option plays, and he has you in the backfield. Like, he's that fast. Let's see. Yeah, most of his tape is him in the backfield. Like, it's him on the other side of the offense, or on the other side of the line of scrimmage, which, as a defensive end, like, that's exactly how you want him to play. And just him to be wreaking havoc left and right everywhere. My final take on this: I think he is the true heir apparent to Cam Good. I honestly think he is the true heir apparent. I think that's the best place for him to play. And I think he might be. I think he's going to be better than Cam Good. Honestly speaking.
Oh,
yeah. In the long
Let's see.
Those are. These are some the big comparisons there, man.
Yeah. I mean, just from an athletic standpoint alone, he already has a higher floor than Cam does. And I think that's gonna play a big part into it. So
yeah. Although it's interesting how both DeRuyter and Sermon were on the video, and they're just like, we're gonna fight to see where we're gonna put him in, because from the looks of it, there is a chance he might end up in the inside linebacker spot.
Yeah.
which is a pretty crowded field right now. And considering his athletic profile, we, with the modern passing offenses of college football, do you think his speed and his pursuit to the backfield could translate to covering tight ends? Did you see anything with tight end coverage on the tape?
Not really, but one thing that jumps out from the tape is that he is very good at shedding his blockers. And most of the time, from what I remember, he was taking on tackles. So if he can do that against tackles, I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to do that against even the most athletic of tight ends. It's just a matter of if the assignment for him comes in where he needs to cover that tight end.
Yeah,
that's the issue that comes in, is that he's so dominant in the backfield. That same with the Miles Williams tape, right? Is that you just don't know what it's going to look like when you ask him to drop into coverage or drop into that flat. So, but yeah, that's Caleb. We got a lot of guys to get through, so I'm going to try and speed us up a little bit. All right, moving on to the next guy, Achille Calhoun. Yeah, I really like this dude. But let's listen in on what Browning had to say about Achille.
Extremely excited to welcome Keely to the Cal family. He's an extremely powerful player, has great play strength, moves exceptionally well for a guy his size. We're going to be able to play him multiple positions in our defensive front, both interior and out on the edge. When Achille committed, it was really, really special. We had him here on campus, one of our spring practices. He got to spend some time with some of our current defensive linemen. And it just felt right for him, and we couldn't be more excited to keep a guy like him, a local guy with his type of character, his potential as a football player, to have him here and be a part of our program.
All right, so that's Achille Calhoun, 3-star guy consensus across both recruiting websites. Weak side defensive end, 6'4", 245 from Liberty in Brentwood, California. So another Bay Area kid who is staying around. Here is my notes on Achille. He has a very, very nasty first step. It's pretty crazy how quickly that first step gets him in the direction he needs to go and beats his blocker. Great hands and instincts in the passing lanes. He's very disciplined, doesn't over pursue. He's decent at disengaging and getting at least a hand on the ball carrier. Has a very good dip of the shoulder move to get around his blocker. If you're a defensive end and can master that move, that's already, I think, a net positive. He already has the frame and body to be effective on the edge. He's not as explosive off the ball, but as I would like him to be. But some strength and conditioning programs should boost it just enough to be effective in Division I college football. He doesn't physically dominate offensive linemen, but he uses his athleticism or his moves to get past guys. We'll have to diversify his move set moving forward to be a bit more consistently effective in the college level. That is my take from the videos I watched. But yeah, that is Achille Calhoun. I think as I said, this defensive line is very interesting because if this were any other year, I would probably say they all have a shot to get into the rotation. And I still think they do, depending on how many guys leave and how many guys stay. But I mean, he's not usurping Brett Johnson. Like that's clear. So it just depends on the other guys. But that if Zionde doesn't return, that spot is open. And I do think that there is a chance here for guys like Achille, or the next guy we'll talk about is Derek Wilkins. And they have a chance to be that starter come day one against, I believe, what was it, Nevada that we're playing day one next year? Yeah. I am very excited about this kid. I think he has a very, very high ceiling.
I'm just excited to have depth on the defensive line.
Yes.
More than three
absolutely.
players? Is that allowed?
What?
I don't know.
Are we allowed?
I'd have to check the rule book.
Are we allowed to have nice things like this?
Yeah. He definitely needs to gain weight. The Cal roster right now has him at 265. All of our defensive ends right now are 280 or above, with J.H. Tevis being the lightest and Gideon Roberts at 305 being the heaviest. So, there is a spot, but they would have to really develop their bodies.
He has time.
Yeah, he has time. There is an in and out.
Yeah,
Somewhere close there.
Yeah.
You know, put a couple double doubles in him, and he'll be dead weight.
Yeah.
Don't tell my mom. But yeah, I know it's. I, I think he's gonna need a year before he breaks into. But if he does, color me shocked and excited.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the next guy, Derek Wilkins. 3-star guy, consensus. The only strong side defensive end that's listed by recruiting sites for the Cal Bears this year. 6'4", 250, down from Rancho Santa Margarita, the Santa Margarita Catholic High School. So let's listen in on what Coach Browning had to say.
His explosiveness, I think that's the thing when you watch his tape, it just jumps off. He's constantly playing in the opponent's backfield, whether it's in the run game or rushing the passer. So, again, we're really excited about him, his potential as a football player, but not only that, how well he fits our culture here. Really enjoyed the recruiting process with Derek. We got a couple opportunities to have him and his mother on campus, and probably the most noteworthy was kind of a last-minute visit over to campus, after spring practice back the day, Keely committed, him and his mother came over, and we really had a chance to just kind of sit down, relax, very, very informal, and even sing some karaoke as a group, which was definitely a highlight of the day. Really enjoyed getting to know him and his family throughout the process. I'm extremely excited that everything worked out and he's going to be a part of our family.
Yeah, so the video actually lists him at 6'5", 270. So I think it says 270 or does it say 250? But anyways, yeah, so he's grown. He's definitely a bigger man now. My little notes on him. Very instinctive edge rusher that is very good at getting off the ball. His explosiveness off the ball is going to be a huge asset as he matures into his body in college. Could probably play as a stand-up outside player as well in certain situations or packages. Very good knack for the ball and awareness of where the play is headed after the snap. Strong hands that allow him to beat blockers, but also not lose grip once he gets a hand on a player. I think he's going to wreak havoc on the defensive line come in a couple years with Brett Johnson, Achille Calhoun, guys like Stanley McKenzie and Jaden Roberts. He raises the floor. I think he raises the floor of our defensive line production just with this signing alone. We expect him to be that impactful and a starter rotation player by game one. I think he has the highest chance of being a starter from these four guys that are on the defensive line. I also think he might have the highest ceiling out of the four guys on the defensive line as well. And it's one of those things where you watch his tape and you're thinking, I don't know how you can keep him off the field if his tape translates into college ball. So, yeah.
So, Rob, what's the key to success? What do you think is the one thing that you're looking out for Derek to make him the top end player that you think he can be?
I think it has to come down to the timing and the speed. That's the thing that all guys really talk about, right? Is getting adjusted to the speed of the college game. And he has the speed. It's a question of can his speed catch up to the college game? And what I mean by that is he's very good off the snap. He's very good off that. But the counts, the timing, it's all high school stuff. Can he adjust that to the college game? And can he translate his first step and explosiveness into the college football realm? If he does that, I think he's a day one starter, and he's probably going to help out Brett Johnson a lot. Like he's going to command at least one or two guys. Like they're not going to be like, all right, we can just put a tight end on him and we won't have to worry about it. Like they're going to have to commit offensive linemen to him in the long term. So I'm expecting good things from him, big time.
I think we got your answer, but it's interesting to note that Calhoun, Wilkins, and Elarms, or all three of them are very similarly rated consensus as recruits, all right on the edge of 4-star status, just outside the top 300. And it'll be interesting to see of those three, which one ends up becoming the highest impact player.
Right.
I think Rob's got his pick as Wilkins is most likely of the three, and that I think is a perfectly reasonable take.
Yeah, I think off the bat, it's probably going to be Wilkins. I do think as I said, all four of these guys, I think, will play a part in the Cal defense by the time their careers are done. But immediately, I think Wilkins has the best opportunity to do so. Yeah. And probably the most need too.
Really. Yeah, Another note on his recruiting is that he was recruited and admitted by Stanford, and we usually lose these recruiting battles. See Bradley Archer 2 years ago, or last year, running back Casey Filkins, right? We lost both of those guys once they got admitted to Stanford, but in this case, he accepted the offer to Cal and then got into Stanford and still held true to his to his initial commitment, which it's huge because it shows a shift in the how at least one recruit, but could be a general zeitgeist of how recruits in the state of California at least view the Cal versus Stanford choice. In both Bay Area, both high academics, just which one you choose to go to. And it seems like Cal is on the upswing for that. Another one with Wilkins is that I think Wilkins and Akili are basically 4 stars in like the 24/7's like sub rating. They have the composite rating and there's their own rating too. And they're 4 stars on that one.
Right.
So, yeah. And you're right. This is Wilkins, Calhoun, Caleb Edomsworm, all floor raisers, ceiling raisers on the defense, just from these 3 recruits alone.
Yep. All right, we move to another fun position, the quarterback. The quarterback. Ah, lovely. All right, we only have one quarterback, so this is going to be a quick one. Kai Milner, 247 rates him as a 4-star. Rivals has him as a 3-star. QB, of course, 6'2", 188 from Higley in Gilbert, Arizona. Also, he was the heir apparent to, or he was the heir, not heir apparent. He was the heir to Spencer Brash, because Spencer Brash played at Higley as well, and he is the QB now here in Berkeley. So now we got 2 back-to-back Higley quarterbacks who are good friends with each other here. So let's listen to Bill Musgrave and what these guys say.
Kai's game is real diverse. He's really good running the ball. He's got a sixth sense out there on the football field, so very few guys get a clean shot at him, whether he's in the pocket or throwing on the run. And then when he does decide to pull it down and go get some yards with his legs, he's slippery. He's a smooth operator out there, that's for sure. Yeah, Kai's from an athletic family. Both his mom and dad are athletes, and they just tell the way they think, the way they process information, the way they approach life. From a competitive nature. They're the same people each and every day. They're authentic, and I think that makes Kai a really tremendous leader for his teammates. When Justin and I first saw Kai throw in person, of course, we reviewed a bunch of film of his sophomore and junior seasons, but his ability to make the different types of throws, whether it be a frozen rope or a long rainbow or something with touch, really impressed us. So he can change speeds and use the appropriate throw for the specific scenario, and pleasure to watch him play football, and also a pleasure to know him as a person.
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever heard the term frozen rope.
Oh.
So I was like, oh, that I didn't know they had like actual like that type of wording for throws, and I had to look it up, and I was like, oh, I had no idea.
It's a little old school.
Yeah, it's pretty old school. Yeah.
But here we go. Christopher H did the drop on Kai, so I'm gonna read you what he sent me. Kai Milner is a 6'2", 188-pound quarterback from Higley High School in Arizona, Spencer Brash's alma mater. He's listed as a pro style, but he showed an ability to buy time in the pocket with his feet and was still a threat in a zone read offense. One thing I liked about Milner was that under pressure, or even as he's about to get sacked, he was still looking downfield to make plays through the air, and he still showed nice accuracy when throwing on the run. He had decent enough arm strength, but I think he'll be able to improve that arm strength once he gets a chance to add some mass in the weight room. Milner's biggest strength was his accuracy in short to intermediate range throws, and he showed a very nice command of touch on his throws. He'd frequently put just enough air under the ball to put it over the outstretched arms of a defender and place the ball into a place where only his wide receivers could reach. At the next level, I'd like to see him work through more progressions, as I don't think I saw him look past his second read, and he'd sometimes not see the open man when he was still locked into his first read. It was difficult to tell if he was making good pre-snap reads based on coverage or if he was simply identifying mismatches between his receiver and outmatched defenders. But he often showed good anticipation throwing his first read. He definitely has room to grow as a quarterback, and he has the potential to develop into a very good one as well. 247, as I told you, they're doing like the pro scout comparisons. Blair Angulo, who is their Mountain Region recruiting analyst, projects him as a Power 5 starter, and his comparison is one Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints Slight frame, but with narrow build, room to add mass, athletic quarterback with a quick release and playmaking ability, compact and easily repeatable mechanics, generates great torque without much wasted movement, does well to slide up in the pocket under pressure, but can also roll out to buy more time. Accurate to all levels with knack of putting touch on throws over defenders, impressive leader and high-level competitiveness, could improve overall arm strength and ball velocity, same thing as Christopher H. Upside as a multi-year Power 5 starter and could garner NFL draft attention. Woo!
The competition once
Hill?
Chase leaves is going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because he is the first Musgrave quarterback. Right? All other quarterbacks were chosen by the previous system Baldwin system. Yeah.
I believe Kai was still recruited under Baldwin too. Like he was on the radar.
Yeah, but the story goes is that the focus was Miller Moss until Musgrave came in, and Musgrave said, "No, Kai Miller is my guy."
Yeah,
is that actually the case? I know that we were going after Moss, but were you the one saying no thanks, or did he tell us no thanks?
No, I think it's from the. I might be mixing up. It might be Rivals podcast. But yeah, it's
either way. He's our dude now.
He's our dude. He's comparison to Taysom Hill. Are we putting him at tight end?
I'm totally okay with saying, Miller Moss, we never wanted him. USC can have him. He sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I am very high on this guy. It's going to be a very interesting battle next summer-ish if Chase is back after next year. But even that backup role, I think you could easily make a case that one of these guys could vie for that number 2 spot over Devon Monster now. Like you can put, and by 2 guys, I probably mean Jaden Casey and.
Yeah, Monster's another interesting name to see if he comes back, and if he doesn't, then the number 2 spot next year will say something about the QB depth chart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I liked on his tape seeing him go downfield a lot. A lot of throws 30, 40 yards downfield. Decent touch and arm strength there. So, he's got the physical tools, and as is the case for most quarterbacks, it's really a question of how well they pick up the offense that they are stepping into, and that's always tough to guess at.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, I think that's enough talk about the quarterback because it's one of those positions where it's like a premier position, but we're not really gonna see him unless we actually have a quarterback position or competition now. Like we know it's Chase, right? We're not blows Chase out of the water. Like we know it's Chase. So, but how many of us thought, how many of us expected Zach Klein to be the starter over Jared Goff? Because it was me. I was all about Zach Klein.
Well, you get a QB recruit, and either he's like the most important player in the program for 2 to 3 years, or they have no impact at all because somebody else takes their spot, and they transfer, and you just don't know necessarily which becomes which.
Yeah, you can't rotate quarterbacks, and it's one position, so you can't really evaluate them because they might not ever see the field.
Yeah.
Although we love to talk about quarterbacks, but
it's a harsh world for quarterbacks.
It is. All right, we move to the backside of the defense now. Nick, you did most of the research on the defensive backs.
Yeah.
So let's get to it. What was your thoughts on the overall the DB recruits this year?
I thought there was some good variety. Guys who we recruited guys who pretty clearly fit into certain slots all across the backfield. So you've got your true cornerback, your likely nickel or slot cornerback, your safety. So good variety. I think, there isn't anyone hugely standout prospect, but, competency and flexibility across the board. So, a solid class of DBs.
All right, let's get right into it with our first guy, Hunter Barth.
Hunter is a safety that is very long. He has long levers. He understands the game well. He also comes from a football family. And so with his length and then his smarts of understanding the game, we expect him to do good things for us. Once again, Hunter has a great personality. He's outgoing. He's the type of kid that he'll call me and he's out fishing. He has a ton of friends. Everybody at the high school seems to speak highly of him. So he's well liked. He's a guy that just has that smile on his face that just loves football. He loves to compete, wants to get better, doesn't like to lose. Comes from a school where they're used to winning. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring guys in here that want to win, know how to win, and know what it takes to win. And so he fits that mold.
Well, thank you, Coach Marcel Yates. 3-star guy across the board, is a safety. 6'2", 200 pounds, from Queen Creek, Arizona, Mr. Hunter Barth. Nick, give us your take on Hunter Barth.
Yeah, well, for one thing, there's actually some senior tape, even if it's abbreviated with the number of games, so that's nice. A lot of variety to the looks and the roles that he played on defense, which I always like to see. Situations where he's playing man. He actually played a little bit of corner, but man coverage when there's 4 wide receivers, zone coverage, deep situations where he's almost more like a linebacker playing up closer to the line of scrimmage on run support, which of course is a critical role for any safety. So I really liked the variety. It feels like he's somebody who isn't going to have to his learning curve won't be as steep as it might be for other players. Instinctual, I think, like Coach said, he knows his football. Didn't struck me as hugely speedy. He's not slow, but he's not Ashton Davis fast, for one obvious comparison, since we're talking safeties. So he may rely a little bit more on his football instincts rather than pure speed to make plays.
All right. I think I definitely think judging from his tape too, that's definitely what jumped out at me is he's a smooth athlete. You clearly can't tell that he's running super fast. He's not relatively, exploding off the tape, but man, he's making some really interesting plays out there on his tape. That's what surprised me. And I like the kid's tape.
Yeah.
It's actually tape that I was like, oh wow, okay, he definitely has the look of a starter or a starting safety.
Do you think he fits into the standard strong free safety mode, or more of the new star safety that we kind of saw this year, but not as much?
I don't know, Nick. You watched this tape more intently than I did, so you probably have a better take.
Sorry, say the question again, Peter.
Do you think he fits free safety, strong safety, or maybe the new star safety position that we're trying to develop?
I don't think that he has the pure speed of a free safety, so I would think more strong or star safety. But he is he's not afraid to make a tackle. He's not afraid to make a hit. So, and I think he has the size to be successful in run support. So yeah, I would see him in more that role.
All right, let's move on to the next guy. Let's talk about Mr. Caleb Higgins. Oof. All right, let's see what Marcel Yates had to say about him.
Caleb Higgins is a long, athletic DB. He can play both corner and safety. He's a cover guy with great foot quickness, length, and he's physical. Caleb has a great personality. He comes from an athletic family. His mom is a volleyball coach. His dad is in the military. His brother plays at Stanford. His sister is a volleyball player, so they're just a sports family. He loves to compete. He's always smiling. He's always happy. What he brings to the Cal community is somebody that's going to make us proud both on and off the football field. He loves the game. He's a good person, and he works hard. When Caleb called and committed, we were super excited because he was the one we wanted, and he was a DB that we thought could help us go to the next level. So when he called and committed, we were all screaming and hollering.
Caleb Higgins, consensus 3-star across the board, cornerback, and you heard Yates talk. He could play safety as well. 6'2", 196. Another Bay Area kid from Folsom, California, in Folsom High School. And Nick, take it away.
So I found his tape really interesting. Most of it was a very specific type of play, which was they are throwing it not at the guy I'm covering, because Caleb Higgins is, the high 3-star guy that's going off to play Power 5 football. We're not going to throw at him. That's stupid. We're going to throw at somebody else on the defense. And he still made plays. Like, there are a lot of plays where he IDs where the quarterback is going and comes off his man to either make a quick tackle, break up a ball. And that's exciting to see, because that tells you, like, you have to have like the football instincts to make that type of play, and also the physical instincts, like to be quick enough off of your man to make a play away from your assignment. Because he was so rarely challenged, is the sense I got, because there's very little tape of him like actually being thrown at explicitly. Like, maybe there are some questions about when he's matched up against better athletes, like what are his one-on-one coverage skills like. They're probably good. We just didn't see it on tape because teams weren't even challenging him. But I think he's the defensive back recruit specifically that I'm most excited about, because of that instinctual playmaking that we saw. Very much not afraid of contact, not afraid to make a tackle. Little unclear, like, if he ever had to play zone at the high school level. It looked like it was mostly man-to-man, but the fact that he was so instinctual makes me think that he'd probably make that transition without a problem, even though I'm not really sure if he's played it.
Peter, anything to add?
Just general questions. Well, note that, again, he's another long, tall defensive back, right? Previously, we had Cam Bynum, who's 5'10", 5'11". Now we are bringing in 6'2", 6'1" guys like, Chigi Anusian, which, indicates that the staff is putting their imprint on the defense, both physically and scheme-wise. And, from Nick's analysis, is that he will look to continue the tradition of, tape heavy study by the defensive backs, by the takers, to build up those instincts, to not think what's happening, just reacting to what's happening on the field, and adding the physical, the body component to it would probably, create the next generation of takers and terrorize quarterbacks in the Pac-12 again.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about more like connections, but his brother, his older brother, is Stanford wide receiver Elijah Higgins. So maybe we get to see some Higgins on Higgins, matchup in the big game, come in a few years, but we shall see.
They're going to ask to go be manned up all game long.
Yeah.
The smack talk will be legendary.
All right, let's move on to the next guy. Lou Magia-Hearns, 3-star guy, cornerback, 5'10", 160 from De La Salle. Pretty honored high school football program out here in the Bay Area in Concord, California. Let's hear what Coach Marcel Yates had to say about Hearns.
Lou Hearns brings a athletic DB that can play both corner and nickel for us. He returns kicks as well. All these guys come from high schools that win. He's a guy that's local, right down the street. De La Salle, right? We all know about that. And so he just brings that winning attitude. He grew up having Cal as his dream school. So for his dream to come true, we're excited because we think we're going to get somebody that's going to come here and work every day. Lou is very soft-spoken, but he carries a chip on his shoulder. He was raised by two great parents that are on him, both on and off the football field. And then off the field, they both are very supportive of him. We're excited about Lou. He's excited to be here as well.
All right, Nick, what you got on Lou Hearns?
So, it's sort of a lazy trope to compare a recruit incoming to precisely to the guy that he might be replacing on the field. But when you bring in a 5'10" guy who spends most of his time in the slot, he's undersized. The Travion Beck comparison is it's too obvious not to pass up, right? What's exciting about his tape is that nickel defense, slot defense is such an important part of modern college football, and he plays that constantly at the high school level. So there's a lot of tape of him defending a slant, defending a crossing route, having good instincts, knowing how to deal with that route, and that's a super valuable skill at the college level. He has the speed and the instincts to do that, and I think if he can develop physically, like you can see, like the size is a question mark. 5'10", 160 is pretty small. I don't know what his weight is now, how much he can add weight without losing his speed, because he's probably the fastest guy we recruited on the defensive side of the ball this year. If he can hold up physically, like the way Travion learned, like I'm going to be so smart about knowing everything that my size is not an issue. I'm going to be able to make the plays. If he can be that type of guy in terms of his tape study and instincts, then I think he's got like the background to succeed in as a slot defender, and so he's intriguing for that reason.
Peter, anything to add?
Yep, he's, as Nick said, he's basically the same size as Trebek from last year. Trebek was 5'9", 165. Lumagia 5'10", 160. All comes down to whether he can compensate, if he can't put on weight without sacrificing speed, and most importantly in the nickel, agility, right? Because when you're playing nickel, you don't have the wideouts are not on the line; they're a yard away, so you don't have the benefit of jamming the receiver and forcing them to go one way or the other, inside or outside. You have to follow them out, and there are some option routes, and if you get matched up with a guy who has the freedom to run option routes, and you're even screwed more, because in an option route, it doesn't matter what the design or the concept is on the outside for the wideouts. You have to follow the guy. You have to recognize what the nickel sees in your own coverage and adapt quickly. I would say that in a lot of defenses, nickel is probably the toughest corner position to play because of those limitations. The fact that you gotta think more and react more and study more, and he is he's going into the slot that is going to be a starter. Nickel is the base package for a lot of schools, and a nickelback is a starter position.
All right. We got one more DB to cover, so let's move on. The last one is Fatuvalu Iosefa, the younger brother of Cal freshman inside linebacker Mo Iosefa, a consensus 3-star, and is a safety, 6'0", 6 foot tall. Sorry, 170 pounds. Mililani High School in Mililani, Hawaii. So let's get what Marcel Yates has to say on Fatuvalu.
Is a long DB as well that can play both corner and safety. He covers well. He has good feet, good hips, physical DB. Comes from, once again, a football family. We all know that he has an older brother that's here with us now that's making plays for us. So we hope that continues with him. He's a special player. Doesn't say much. He speaks softly, but he carries a big stick. So he's a guy that we expect to just be kind of your old school lunch pail kind of guy. So we were excited about it. It took him forever to tell us. I don't think he quite understood what he was doing, and his brother was giving him crap. He was like, "Man, speak up, talk up." But the kid is just quiet, but he was excited. We were all excited, and we can't wait to get him up there.
So another one of those brother connections, but this time both brothers are here at Cal. What do you got for us on Iosefa, Nick?
So his tape is probably the toughest tape to say a ton about, in part because, one, it's just short. Like there's the least amount of tape of him as compared to all the other guys I looked at. And secondly, they list him as a likely safety at Cal. They mentioned in the video safety or cornerback. His tape was almost entirely as a man cornerback on the outside. So I don't really have any sense of how well he would translate at safety. What I can say, the one thing that stood out from his tape is ball awareness. So, if you're the type of person who hates a cornerback who is like running with the wide receiver and never gets his head around and has no idea where the ball is, that was not his issue. He was very ball aware, good at making plays on the ball, had a couple of interceptions, knew when to get his head around. It's a good field awareness. Less of a valuable skill as a cornerback, but it can be used. Or I'm sorry, as a safety, but still a useful skill. It was good to see. don't really have a good sense of how well he would translate as a safety, but intriguing just for those ball skills by itself.
Peter?
No comment.
Yeah, it's always fun to get when you get brothers, right? And like I hope to see like both ISFs on the field at some point, in the next couple of years, where you see like M ISFA and F ISFA, like you got two guys just playing side by side on the field. Like I love seeing that. So
Yeah.
I'm all for it. All right. Well, we're done with the DBs.
We have a question about the De La Salle recruiting from the Cardamon.
Oh, he does. He says, any chance this kid helps open up recruiting to DLS? Is there anyone we are looking at 2022 or beyond? I actually haven't started looking up 2022, and I'm unsure if there's any DLS guys. I know we've tried to recruit DLS guys in the past. We just haven't gotten lucky with any of them. So this is the first one.
I think there is one. Hold up. Tagaloa, one of Tagaloa brother, younger Tagaloa brother.
There's so many of those brothers.
Yeah, hold up. Brody Tagaloa and Zeke Berry, both of them class of 2022. Brody tight end and Zeke Berry cornerback. So those two guys.
Well, we've had no Tagaloa luck so far. Maybe we can break our deck next year.
Yep.
Well,
hey
with
guys,
that being said,
I
Nick
gotta get rolling. Unfortunately,
has to take off. So thanks, Nick. Nick, before you leave, I want you to pick out our next position. So we got linebacker, tight end, and wide receiver left. Which direction should we go?
I mean, as somebody, one part of me wants to say wide receiver just because there's some of the most intriguing prospects there, and I'm always a wide receiver guy just naturally. Having said that, J. Michael Terry, our tight end, was one of the more intriguing recruiting stories of the weekend, and I'm curious to see whether or not he'll break Cal's curse of the tight end since Sonny abandoned the position. So either one of those, a fine choice.
So we move to the tight end.
Bye, guys.
With that, bye, Nick. All right. And then there was 3. All right, guys. Time to talk about the tight end. I did the write-ups on the tight end, so you get me for me to talk about it. But if you have any questions or hot takes on any of these guys or anything, don't be afraid to put in the chat. We're monitoring it constantly and reading it, so go on ahead. Let's talk about the first guy, Keleki Latu, who is the younger brother, I believe, of Layatu Latu, who's up at UW. Who we were recruiting as well. Latu is a consensus 3-star on 247 and on Rivals. Tight end, of course. 6'6", 205 from Carmichael, California. Let's see what Coach Tui had to say about Latu.
Keleki Latu is a long athlete, comes from a family of rugby players, and so very excited about Keleki. He's going to grow tremendously in this system because he has the ability to set the edge like we want our tight ends to do in the run game. But he also can stretch the defense down the middle with his length and athleticism. He's another young man from right down the road up in Sacramento. We made it a focus to build our program around local kids. I'm very excited about him. He's got an unassuming personality, but when he plays on the field, he plays big. Keleki is like myself. We're half Polynesian, half Caucasian, and being from the Bay Area, he fits into the demographic of this area. I mean, it's a melting pot, and so for Keleki to come down here and join this community, he's excited. I'm excited for him. We were fired up that he wanted to make his own path, and so he's excited to stay home. I think he wants his mom and dad to be able to come down to the freeway to watch him week in and week out, and he wanted to play in front of his friends and family.
Solid. Yeah, so to start, he is immediately going to be the biggest target we have in that room. 6'6", 205, and has pretty dang long arms. So that's the first. He doesn't have elite athletic ability, but his build increases his catch radius and will probably be a mismatch to most of the inside linebackers that we play in conference. He has great hands, fights for the ball, Windows, as I said, his catch radius is larger, so the windows to Latu are going to be a lot larger than a lot of the other tight ends that our quarterback will be throwing to that's currently on the roster. Don't expect him to be a starter or rotation player come week 1, but I could see him becoming like a red zone guy if we have a double tight end set, just because of how big the dude is. Because you could toss it up to the back of the end zone and he could probably just jump up and grab it too. I believe he'll start by the end of his career. He's going to be a starter or a rotation player, but I don't believe he's going to be one of those game breaker type of guys. Just one of those solid tight ends that plays for us for 4 years. That is my take on him. Any thoughts or questions or anything that you noticed, Peter?
I think first things first. Give a kid a sandwich. 6'6" at 205. That's
Yep.
I mean, he has to gain weight for
Yep.
to play the position because at 205 he'll be pushed around by defensive outside linebackers and pass pro or run
Mhm.
blocking. But you can't teach height. You can't teach hands, which he has. He's probably gonna need some. He's got a red shirt. He's probably going to need another year or two just to build up and see if he can, if his body keeps up with the athletic potential he has.
Right.
Although keeping on with the brother on brother type, UW games, if he plays, it'll be his brother's the inside linebacker. It'll be, brother on brother all over again.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's kind of what you're hoping for. That we're getting all these, I think, younger brothers, and I hope like we just get that edge, right?
Yeah. We got to get the fiery spirit. But I, for one, I'm just looking forward to having a big guy in the end zone, like you said, that Renzo target 6'6". That's exciting.
Yeah. Oh, just wait till you see the next tight end.
Oh, I'm very excited.
Yeah, but I think in before we move on to the next guy, I think the best thing about getting Latu is that his skill set, I think long term, is going to be very, very well complemented by the next guy we're going to talk about. I think if these two guys are the starters come in a couple years, I think one of them actually might be the starter come next year.
Yeah.
But if these two guys are the starters in a couple of years, like having two tight end sets with both of these guys, I think is it's going to be special if it pans out that way.
And this is also a gift to Coach Clark of our 23-time national championship rugby team.
Exactly.
Fun fact: if you don't know about Cal Rugby, we are the Alabama of rugby.
We're the Alabama plus the New England Patriots of college rugby.
Like Stanford 1 year decided not to play us.
Pretty much.
Just straight up, just like we're not playing.
Yeah. Oh, we're good here.
And Coach Clark called them cowards.
Coach Clark for future Cal AD.
Coach Clark for anything.
All right, let's move on to the next guy, because the next guy is the guy that we all kind of want to talk about.
Yeah.
Jermaine Terry, consensus 4-star across all the boards, tight end, 6'4", 235, right here from the Bay Area in Richmond, California. Went to Kennedy High School. We'll get into his story, like what Nick alluded to in a little bit. But before that, let's see what Tui had to say.
It's actually 6'5", 265 now.
It's sick. Oh, it is 255. It says on the.
Yeah, okay. Apparently, yeah. 255.
Okay. Even wow. Okay. Let's just.
Jermaine Terry is 6'4", 250-pound tank of a tight end. He can run, he can catch, and he can block. He's from right down the road in Richmond. I'm so excited about him. He's going to fit great in our new system of using tight ends, not only in the run game, but in the passing game. He's a local kid. He loves the Bay Area. He's going to be our hometown hero. He's going to be the type of kid that this program has been built on. Jermaine's commitment was very surprising and amazing all at once. Since we came here in 2017, he was earmarked as the guy that we wanted to go after. We wanted to keep him home. And so we worked really hard to make this a great fit for him. We just hired a new offensive coordinator. And literally, I think he had talked to him one time about our system. And so it was like a Wednesday morning or something like that. And he called us and said, I'm in. And we went berserk, and people were running around the office, yelling and screaming. It was an exciting thing for us because he committed early. And I think it set the tone for our class. I'm excited about this class. And to me, he kind of started that being the local kid.
Oh, All right. For the people that have been out of the loop and who don't really follow recruiting as intently as some of us do, basically what had happened or what transpired earlier this week, because early signing day was on Wednesday, and what transpired probably through the weekend is these little tidbits and whispers started coming out that ASU was feeling very confident that they could flip Jermaine Terry. And it started to show up on boards and behind paywall, and it kind of leaked out onto Twitter. And then on, I think Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, it was kind of ASU people felt pretty positive and good about it. Cal guys were still positive, but a lot of the national recruiting analysts were like, I think it's like a 50-50. I think it's a toss-up. We won't know until he actually announces. And so that's kind of how the feeling was going all day, and was like, is he going to flip? Is he not? Is he going to flip? And then all of a sudden he just puts out the signed tweet, and Cal puts up the video of him with, this video of him signed and ready to go. And, he has a little video in there saying that he's raring to go as well. So yeah, that's kind of what played out and what had happened over the last couple days. And I know ASU fans, some of the ASU fans were like, we'll take a 4-star guy off your hands. Thank you very much. And then Cal fans, came back at him, clapped back on Wednesday night after he had signed, and just was like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
No, you're not, buddy. But yeah, it's just the interesting. It's just the interesting thing of how recruiting happens and how it goes, that it's so unpredictable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to follow along, was like this is the best class Cal has had on just on the raw recruiting data since 2011, right?
Yeah.
We had not a single player flip except for Will Reed, who flipped to Princeton, which means it was less athletic, more academic. But it is remarkable that we were able to hold on to all the highly recruited players, because we fought off Alabama for Jermaine Terry.
Yeah.
Right? We fought off the Honors College of Arizona State University for Jermaine Terry. It speaks to how well the staff, create relationship with the players and emphasize, especially to Terry, because they've been on it since 2017, to show that, hey, you have strong potential. People in Richmond love you, and if you come to Cal and make it big, and be the big man on. You're not gonna be the big man on campus. You're gonna be the big man in the Bay.
Yeah.
Which it says a lot, and just transitioning to his tape. I mean, he has all the athleticism in the world. He has an NFL ready, but there are very few NFL players who are 6'5", 260 and can move like he can on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Even when the relative comparison to other, just kids mulling around on the football field. It's, whether he develop his hands, can he develop route running, can he just build on a very strong foundation he already has? And looking from the tight ends we've already had go through, Coach Chewy's training, every single one of them, besides Elijah Moraro, none of them were actually recruited by us. Colin Moore was a walk-on quarterback, turned tight end. Reinhold and Tonjes also walk-ons. So we're immediately raising the athletic floor of the position.
Yeah.
And thinking about the way we played this year, it was a ton of 21, a lot of 12, and as Rob said, Jermaine Terry, unless there is some issues with picking up the playbook, which I doubt there will be, or issues with just learning the route tree, he's gonna be a day one, our tight end once, starting day one.
Yep.
Just by the fact that he can bust a huge play just with the ball in his hands.
Yeah. Aaron Sessions says this guy is going to be a beast. I concur. Let me give you my what I wrote down. He's a vicious tight end, very physical. He's relentless on his assignment, especially when he's blocking. Very, very physical. Knows his frame and size perfectly and parlays it into being a very good catcher of the ball, meaning he uses his body well to make catches. He also has a little bit of that spectacular catch ability. There were some plays where he's like in the middle and it's just a little bit thrown in front of him. So you see him like outstretched with just one arm and grab the ball out of the air. Like he has that spectacular catch in him. He dominated his opponents through his physical and athletic abilities. Some things he needs to work on, though, is that he needs to become a better route runner, especially out of his breaks. He's outstanding off the ball. Like on the snap, he's so explosive. But when he's coming out of his breaks, like either on a curl or on an out or an in or even a slant, you clearly can see that he's a little bit slow. Like his change of pace isn't there, and he slows down so much that it takes time to speed back up again out of his break. And I think that can be worked on. It's just going to be a technique thing as he goes. For the older Cal fans out there, I think he is probably our most athletic and natural pass catching tight end that we've had since probably Cameron Mora or Anthony Miller. And I pulled up Cameron Mora's Cal Bears stats, and I'm not going to read his stats, but his Cameron Mora's measurables were 6'4", 243, and I believe Anthony Miller was 6'4", 260. So he's in that range. I think he's going to end up being that size long term, and we haven't had that type of guy since these guys. So that's my take on Jermaine Terry. Bay Sports Nerd on Twitter asks, what are the chances JT plays right away? As Peter said, barring any issues with him learning the playbook, or maybe he's not up to par with his blocking technique, or whatever it may be, it has to be that type of stuff. It's not because of his ability and like a need to grow physically. Like he's there physically, he can play, and he should, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I'm not a coach, so
yeah. I mean, we're just projecting high school kids playing on tape. There's, we're just none of us played football, right? None of us coach football. So let's be real here. But he's not even the best recruit we have on the offensive side of the ball.
Right.
But I'm fairly certain he's going to be the first one to start on the offensive side of the ball. Considering the depth chart, considering the talent he has to compete against, and considering just how we play the game.
He's going to be, I think, offensively, he's probably our most impactful freshman. Like he's going to be the most, and arguably the most important freshman on the offense.
Yeah. Hell, put him at fullback and run spider 2-eye banana, throw the ball in the flat, and watch him hurdle or bulldoze some 5'10" quarterback.
Yeah. You're going to see it, and it's going to happen. Yeah. It's going to happen. Yeah. Peter just spoken into existence, but I think it's safe to say that if you follow recruiting, even just at like a bare minimum surface level, this is probably the guy that you're most hyped about across the board. I think for most people, other than one more guy we'll talk about later. But I think you're a football watcher, and you know how much the tight end position means. Like this is the guy that everyone's going to look for.
And to just put the cherry on the top, we know he's highly recruited, but let's just state who we beat to obtain his commitment: Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Miami, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Oregon, Penn State, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas A&M. We're not beating Columbia or Harvard or Utah State for these kids. This guy chose us over Blue Bloods, and that shows something about the program, and it shows something about him as what the potential he has. Because Nick Saban flew into the Bay Area just to talk to him, and he said no.
He said, "Take your plane and go."
Yeah. Brandon Huffman on 247 has us compared to David Njoku, which is awesome. I am terrified of what this offense could look like. I just look ahead to, I think it's fall 2022 when we're slated to play Notre Dame. Yeah. Oh man, this could be fun with Jermaine Terry, and if Latu develops and builds that size, wow, whew, what a nightmare.
Yeah. We're all going to South Bend, boys.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm right here in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm ready to drive out.
I think all of us are ready to go to South Bend. But before we go to South Bend, we have more positions to talk about. We got 2 more positions left. Let's move back to the defensive side, because I want to leave wide receiver for last, because I know Peter and I are gonna just scream and have so much fun watching talk about that guy. So let's go to linebacker. All right, we move to linebacker. There's a couple guys here. The first one is Mr. Moses Oladejo. 3 stars across the board. Outside linebacker, 6'2", 225 from Elk Grove, California. Let's see what Sermon had to say about Moses.
We're really excited to add Moses to the defense. There are a couple things that really stand out to me about Moses on the field. He's active, he has a great motor, and he's actually very young for being a senior. So we feel there's a lot more development in him and personality. He's got an infectious, contagious personality. He loves learning, and he's going to be great in the locker room. I really enjoyed when Moses and his mom attended junior day. You know, he was eager to meet all the guys on the current team, and just had a big smile on his face. And from the very first time he was here, he let me know that he wanted to be a Cal Bear. So that's special when you get to go to the university that was your dream.
All right. So Mr. Moses Oladejo, our one of our new writers, Drew, was the one who did the write-up on him. So I'm going to give you his take from the tape. Positives is a high motor, high effort guy, has a nose for the football and finds himself in the backfield often, shows off his athleticism and playmaking ability when catching the ball as a tight end. On the con side, or things that he needs to work on, highlight reel does not show him as a pass defender, may need to fill out his frame. Thought this is not a big concern, but yet still a concern. So that's what we got on Moses Oladejo. Peter, you got anything to add about Moses?
Not really. I didn't watch his tape. I do know that we beat Andy Boo at Arizona for his commitment.
Lovely. I love it when we can beat Andy. You know, it's always fun.
Because he used to beat us a lot.
He did. He did. And, well, he also, yeah. That's not fun.
He beat us as the coach for us.
Yep. He was our coach, and he shot ourselves in the foot. Yeah. But I do like Moses' tape. I think he's one of those like offensive guys that could probably develop in a rotation guy or even a starter. He has that floor. I think he has the floor of being a contributor. He's not too much of a diamond in the rough type of guy. I think he definitely has some of that ability to play. So I'm excited to add more to that offensive line or outside linebacker depth because we sorely lacked it, and it was clear this season when we were playing.
Yeah.
That being said, let's move on to the next guy, Patrick Hisatake. Consensus 3-star guy, outside linebacker, 6'4", 240 from Westview High School in Portland, Oregon. Let's hear what our defensive coaches had to say about Patrick.
Patrick, I really love his length. He's a tall guy, 6'5", and his size at 245 pounds. He's a guy that is very much the mold of guys who can set a great edge for us. He's a guy that we're targeting right now as a rush edge player because he brings a lot to the table as far as being able to, make plays off an edge. He's a guy that's constantly hitting Coach Browning and myself up to work on his game right now so that when he gets here in January, he wants to hit the ground running and compete for a job. And to me, it's been really impressive to see what Patrick and his dad, Mole, both of them out there working on his game.
Pat's going to fit in really, really well in our defense, playing outside linebacker. And I think the thing that stood out about Pat, probably the same thing I've said about a lot of these guys, is just the combination of size and athleticism. So I'm really, really excited for the individual, the quality of a person that we're getting. And then not only that, I know the mentality that he's bringing in terms of how he's going to approach getting better every day.
The first thing I'll say about Patrick is that if you don't follow recruiting, go take a look at it's either his Twitter account or his Instagram account, and just look at all the videos of him like running through drills right now, because he's not playing high school ball, but he's out there, as Coach said, like with his dad doing drills and stuff, and he has all of it on tape, like little snippets, and that's insane to me. That like he's like calling them, asking like what he needs to work on because he's going to be an early enrollee, which there's quite a few guys that are going to be early enrollees, and we can talk about that later. But he's one of the interesting ones. Drew wrote up the thing on him too, so let's get through his pros. Athletically, he's a 4 or 5-star talent, though he's 6'4", 240, is fast and agile, could play either outside linebacker or defensive end, has unlimited potential. The negative or con side, though highly recruited, Michigan, Nebraska, UCLA are other notable offers. He didn't make either an all-state or an all-conference team in 2019 while at Clackamas High School in the Portland area. Did not get a chance to play in 2020 as Oregon did not have high school sports due to COVID. Not a lot of film on him dropping back into coverage. So another one of those situations where due to the pandemic, not able to see how he's developed into his senior year, because clearly he's one of those guys that has improved yearly, and not being able to see that final jump that he made before he came to college might be did it plateau before he got here, or is it still on the uprise? Hopefully it's on the uprise. But as he said, athletically measurables, like you saw the tape, he's definitely one of the most athletic outside linebackers we've had.
I mean, he started his football career as a defensive back.
Yeah.
He just grew so big that they put him at linebacker. And he's, in the video, 6'5". That kid can play defensive end if he fills out his body.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about a kid with the mobility of a defensive back playing, pass rush.
Right.
That could be destructive if applied correctly, because if you look at the modern NFL pass rushing linebacker of a 3-4, it's bend, it's agility. You don't need to run a 4-4, which would be nice, but you need a guy who can bend around like Von Miller. I'm not saying he's Von Miller, just the agility and the body control to get around a tackle to get in. But yeah, the lack of reps for senior year is a concerning matter. It's like, what are we gonna get out of him? He has very good offers. Just we'll see, whether his athletic potential will match to his on-field production.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the big key here. Is I mean, if you're just going off of that tape, like if you told an NFL scout, hey, we got a guy who moves like a DB but is the size of an outside linebacker or defensive end, where would you take him? Like, that's without looking at the tape. That's like if that's how you're describing him to me, that's like a first or second rounder. Like, that's like a combination.
We're getting ahead of it.
Right. But I'm saying that's the potential here. Like, it's that combination of his athletic ability plus his size that is very intriguing to see as a prospect.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of him reaching that potential here. All right. Well, we have one more guy actually on the linebacker side, which I totally missed until this morning. So I watched his tape and I got it all down. But we got Mr. Nate Ruchena, 3-star guy overall, outside linebacker, 6'3". Sorry, this needs to be updated. He's 6'3", 225.
Yeah, he gray shirted. That's why it's a huge mass.
Right, Monte Vista High School in Danville, California, another local kid. So let's listen in on what Sermon had to say about him.
Nate has been unique in the recruitment process because he also attended the same high school as two of my daughters. So there was a lot of opportunity with watching Nate firsthand. He played wide receiver, played outside linebacker, played some safety, and really moved all around the field for Monte Vista and was an impact player every position that he played. We really enjoy the opportunity of having local players join our team. I think there's for a couple of reasons. I think they completely understand what Cal is about academically, what we're going to be about culturally, and what the area is all about. And then I think it also promotes the best players in the Bay need to stay at home and beat the Cal Bears.
Well, that's what he had to say about Nate. Let's run you through what I saw in his tape. Nate's a very smooth athlete, not the fastest athlete, but he knows how to use his size well and knows how to leverage it into positive points. Very good using the dip of his shoulder to get around his blockers, especially when he's coming off the edge. Very good use of his hands on engagement and has very good strength to grasp onto the ball carrier. He needs to one thing he does need to work on is he needs to drive himself into tackles a bit more, or he's going to get burned trying to arm tackle guys, or by when there's a lot of times where he like launches himself at the ball carrier to kind of bring him down. But the moment he leaves his feet, I think at this next level, it could be a potential like high risk, high reward type of situation. And I think we'd probably want to have the solid tackling more than that. And the last thing I think he does need to work on a bit is his tackling angles need to get a little bit better. I do think he tried to use his sheer athleticism to make up for some bad angles, which he did in high school, but that's not gonna work at the next level. So That's my take on Nate. Yeah, as Peter said, he was originally a 2019 commit, but gray shirted and will be on campus soon.
Rob, can you explain what gray shooting means?
If I'm not mistaken, what gray shirting means is that we want to bring you on, but a scholarship hasn't opened up yet, so we're just delaying your enrollment for one season, which then just basically means like you just go and take classes at community college or go to a year of prep school or however you want to handle it, and then you just join them on campus.
I see.
Yeah, I believe that's what it is, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Peter, anything from Nate?
For Nate?
Yeah.
Well, I think the fact that it's Sermon talking, not De Ruyter, could indicate that they might be looking at him as an inside linebacker.
Yep.
Which the fact that he played wideout, he was a wideout for his high school, which
he's an athlete.
He's an athlete. He has change of direction speed, which is very key for our inside linebacker position, considering sifting. NFL scouts call it sifting through trash, as in getting around the blockers to get to the ball carrier. Could be a very good skill, and if anything, he can just provide meaningful depth because we know, how depth can be affected just by one or two players being out.
Yeah. I do remember Trace from Rivals telling me that Nate was one of the guys that like they have those like Rivals athlete tests, like regional tests. And he was one of the guys that actually finished like in the top tier.
Oh, wow.
In the Bay Area one. So that was one of the guys. That was one of the things that like jumped out at them was just his athletic ability. So
he's a sparked up guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's Nate, and that's all the linebackers. We go to our final group of positions that we're gonna have so much fun talking about this.
Yeah.
The wide receivers, Mr. Burl Toller earning his paycheck absolutely with the two guys that he pulled in this class. But before we get into them, I need to go pee really badly, so I'm gonna go pee and I'll be right back.
Yeah, and while that, I would just say that from a recruiting standpoint, right? Burl Toller was called by Cristobal to come to Oregon to coach wideouts, and he said no because again, Burl Toller is a Cal guy. He played for us, and the fact that he stayed and he's bringing in 4-star talent, not just this year, but even last year, we had a fantastic wideout class with Baker, Hunter, Mangum, Christakos. Like, we are building a very solid wide receiving core with a very high ceiling and floor that we just need a quarterback to dispense the balls to. And we know that, Chase Garbers is capable of doing that, is whether or not he can get used to the system and all the wideouts get on the same page, because if this all works out and the tight ends work out, we're gonna have ourselves an offense.
And there we go. And so we talk about the offense. We begin with I believe he was the very first commit of the 2020 class.
I think so too.
Yeah. So we move with Mr. Maven Anderson. 247 has him rated as a 4-star. Rivals has a 3-star. Of course, he's playing wide receiver. 6 foot, 195 from Mission Viejo. Let's hear what Burl Toller had to say about Maven.
Money Mave. Mave is the savage, man. He is a physical, dominant player. You meet him outside of football, you think, okay, he's just low key. And then on the field, he's a monster. He's going to bring that physical aspect to this offense that we need. And looking forward to having him suit up for the blue and gold sooner than later. Maven is synonymous with family, just what he comes from, what he stands for. He came up on his visit by mom, aunt, dad, little bro. Really looking forward to getting him up here and extended his family. But we've already got that foundation going, and we're only going to build on it. So you know that when he makes a decision, there's no going back on it. And that's why we were so fired up about him committing. He was the first one in our class. He really started off something special and takes a lot of pride in that. And he knew that once he committed, based on his personality, based on the people that he touches, and based on, kind of the clout that he carries day in and day out, that a lot of people are going to jump in. And we have a special class for a reason, and he's the main part of it.
Yeah, I mean, if your first pull is a 4-star wide receiver, that's a pretty good place to start. So our very own Christopher H. did the film breakdown on Maven, and so let me read you what he wrote. Maven Anderson is another talented wide receiver who was not at all afraid of contact and would even look to run over defensive backs trying to tackle him. He looks like a power running back after the catch. He showed strong hands and a willingness to put his body on the line to make catches over the middle when he knew he would take a hit. He had a nice speed release and double move to fight off press coverages. I didn't see him run too many routes, as it looked like his team often used the swing pass or screen pass to simply get him the ball and let him make a play after the catch. So it's helped to see him develop his route running. He has solid burst speed and could make decent cuts in the open field. He looks like an all-around solid receiver, which gives him some versatility. If Sturdivant's the X wide receiver, I think Anderson would make a solid Z to complement him.
Mm-hmm.
Woo! All right, Peter, I need your take on Maven.
So the thing with Maven and the next guy we're going to talk about is that it's going to be a loaded wideout room already, right? He's coming in with Baker, Hunter, Christakos, Mangum ahead of him, and the guys we're keeping like Nico. Whether or not Nico comes back, I have a feeling he's going to come back. There are 2 spots going to open up, maybe 1 even, because again, we play 21 personnel a lot. We play 12 personnel a lot. What that means is that we're going to have 2 wideouts on the field most of the time, right? So whether or not he can, break through early on, that's a question. But development matters. Bro Toller has shown to be able to develop guys and have the experience as a FBS wideout to develop. I'm excited. From Chris H's breakdown, I think his skill set could make him the heir apparent to Nico Remigio, because again, fearlessness after the catch, fearlessness when making the catch over the middle. Those are the hallmarks of those are the big important mental parts of being a slot guy, right? And if he can, he's a 4-star athlete already, which means he has a burst, agility, body control to contribute. And if he's not the Z because of our scheme, he'll be a slot. And it would be foolish for us to not find a way to get the ball in his hands if he can. He's capable of making a play.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a stellar lineage of those guys that are like sheer just force of will over the middle, right? We've had Conavai, now Nico, and then now probably Maven after Nico's gone. So a very, very I'm excited to see these guys, man. Especially whenever they come. I don't know if Maven's an early entry, but we can talk about that later. But yeah, Christopher, any thoughts on Maven?
Yeah, I was just looking up his 247 pro comp, and they got him as Devontae Adams. Again, high praise. I'm super excited if he gets anywhere close.
Spicy.
And so, yeah,
very, very spicy indeed.
And we beat out Arizona State, Auburn, Maryland, Nebraska, Minnesota, Oregon, and Stanford. And Washington State for his commitment. So not too shabby of a list of teams. Yeah, I mean, one thing as a side note, one thing is to look at stars for quality of commitment. Another thing is to look at the offer list of a player to really see what people who are actually paid good money to make these decisions of offering or not say. And of course, there's the environment of more schools offering more kids, but still, these aren't your Utah States or something like that, or San Diego States we're beating out for our wideouts like we used to.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's talk about the last guy. The guy that we all have been waiting to talk about. Mr. J. Michael Sturdivant, come on down. The consensus 4-star could possibly even put, if he had a season, I believe he did have a senior season, which I think he also has the record in his school for most catches or receiving yards. One or the other. All time, he has his high school record now of catches or receiving yards. One or the other. You can check on his Twitter or Instagram page and you can see that. But wide receiver, 6'3.5", 185 pounds. And from Flower Mound, Texas, Marcus High School, let's hear what Burl Toller had to say about J. Mike.
J. Mike is a straight baller. Really, he was intrigued with this film by his size, his length. You don't typically find guys 6'3" plus that can move well like that. He has flat out speed. Went out to see him in a game last year, and first time he touched the ball, he takes it to the house on the screen. Just those attributes that are hard to find within receivers. That frame, that size, and then still the heart and attitude, want-to that he has is a rare combination. Getting to know J. Mike's been great. He's a smooth dude. He's low-key, but he is a student of the game. He really takes everything into account when he makes a decision, and that's why we're so fired up that he's a Golden Bear. I love J. Mike that he's close with his family. When I talk to him, he's hanging out. They got the backyard redone, hanging out, watching TV in the backyard with the family or watching movies. They do a lot of family-oriented things. It's perfect fit for Cal. We're family-oriented ourselves. I'm the same way with my family, and it's just a perfect fit from that aspect.
I mean, before we talk about the breakdown, let's just get to the front of it. He is the best recruit of the Wilcox era, the most heralded recruit of the Wilcox era, and it's in the same class as Jermaine Terry. We have the two best recruits of the Wilcox era came in the same class. On the side of the ball that he's not even coaching.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, so go ahead with your scouting breakdown.
Yes. So we have Christopher H did the breakdown on J. Mike as well. So let me get you through it. He broke it up into little 3 parts for this one. So he has skills, areas of improvement, and ideal usage. So let's talk about the skills first. J. Michael Sturdivant is a tall, rangy receiver with a big frame to add mass. He competes in the high jump and long jump in track and field, and he's shown a great ability to high point the football in jump ball situations. He has a large catch radius and good body control. He has high top end speed and can really separate from a defender once he hits his stride. He also has an ability to fight for extra yards after catch and can use his long arms to develop a nasty stiff arm. He has good blocking ability, and he's able to bully smaller defensive backs. Areas for improvement. Although Sturdivant has good top-end speed, he can be a bit slow to accelerate with his big, long strides. He can also improve upon his release and disguise his routes better. So an ideal usage, Sturdivant looks to be a natural outside receiver, but I think he can also pose a challenge to defenses as a big slot with his ability to make catches in traffic. He can take the top off a defense with a go route, and he would be an excellent target in the red zone for a jump ball and end zone fade situations. I can see him developing into a number 1 wide receiver.
Okay.
Walk me through it.
It's 2021. Trayvon Clark and
Kakura
Crawford. Graduate. Our starting lineup is Jeremiah Hunter, who has had a ESPN top 10 catch as a high school student on one end. On the other side, J. Michael Sturdivant, who's had 2 of them his senior season. And we're gonna have them for 3 years, and we have Chase Garber since 3rd year. In a
3 years, could be 4.
I don't know. I honestly don't fit. If both of those guys start and they hit the potential they will be hitting, they're not gonna stay for a 4th year.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing with J. Michael Sturdivant is that he's not beating guys with just being faster or bigger, right? Those are things that. There was a pitfall with Corey Coleman in the NFL draft, is that he was out of Baylor and he was drafted in the 1st round by the Browns. And, a lot of scouts said he has 3 routes in his pocket: slant, go, curl.
Yep.
Right. And it's all about getting the ball in his hands and running. But the thing with J. Michael is that he beats opponents not just with physicality or being faster, but just savvy and just knowing where the ball is, especially on scramble drills. Like his most recent ESPN clip wasn't of him mossing over a guy. It was him recognizing his quarterback being in trouble, coming back to him, making a play to catch the ball, and then having the wherewithal to know that the cornerback is behind him, spinning around to run for a touchdown. I mean, he turned a 15-yard gain into a touchdown, which in college football is huge.
Yeah. It's that game-breaking ability that he has that we haven't had in quite some time.
I mean, the best game-breaking ability we've had so far was Vic Vortis sorry, talking trash for a bad personal, for a PI. And
Right.
again, J. Michael was recruited by Arkansas, Baylor, Duke, Florida State, LSU, Miami, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, and Stanford, and Texas A&M, and UCLA, and Wisconsin. These are blue bloods again, and it's not just any blue bloods. Oklahoma has sent multiple first-round wideouts to the NFL, and the fact that he chose us because of I think it's from the different reports is the relationship Bro Toller and the staff have developed with J Mike to show him is like, hey, you might be from Texas, but we will make sure you find a home here, and then you like it, and that maybe his focus is on academics too. Maybe he liked the fact that he's not just getting 3 years in college in a Power 5 school. It's the Berkeley education, it's the opportunity we get. But because again, football, it takes one play, and it's gone.
Yep.
And all you might just have the degree, and getting a Berkeley degree is huge for some players. But boy, do I want to see him play for us already. Christopher, any thoughts?
Yeah,
No,
Christopher, what do you got?
Again, I love the size. I actually didn't know much about our previous class, and I just looked up Jeremiah Hunter and that clip, and being 6'2", so having these two on our, oh my God, I'm having trouble comprehending what our offense would look like in a year and a half or two, and I'm trying to resist getting too excited because that's like the one pitfall of every Cal fan.
It's the
right?
hope that kills you.
Yeah.
If
my
anything, you
goodness.
always watch Wisconsin. You're in Madison.
I could.
Hey, Kim.
Smart kid. Yep.
Yep.
He definitely is. Spencer asks, how do we get him to come? As we talked about, relationships built. It's usually how recruiting works, right? It's the relationships. You sell them on what the school offers you and what they're thinking of how they're going to use you in the offense and the team as a whole. And that's pretty much where it is. I could watch his game tape all day long. Like, it's just one of those where you're just like, you just envision him wearing the blue and gold, like in Berkeley, playing and just absolutely dominating. Like, when's the last time like you were this excited about a wide receiver? Like, Keenan's probably the last one for me.
D-Rob.
See, I think he's above D-Rob for me, because D-Rob was athletically, I was like, holy crap, like he's gonna destroy people. But as a wide receiver, like a complete wide receiver, Keenan was the last one where I was like, man, he's gonna dominate like from the get-go with just in a variety of ways.
Yeah.
And I feel that same feeling with J Mike.
Yeah. Again, there is a lot of potential in this offensive. The last two offensive classes. I mean, we had Damon Moore break the Cal true freshman record for rushing yards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have potentially two number one wideouts coming in. One coming in, and we have potentially a NFL body at tight end.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes down to development. There's no excuses anymore for the staff to say, oh, it's not our guys. These are our guys. It's up to the staff to make sure that the promises we've made to these kids and the promises that that we've made to their parents will pan out when it comes to developing them as players, as men, and just as representatives of the university. And honestly, I have not seen a single thing that a Cal player that we have currently do that would, go against that.
Yep. They're definitely recruiting the right kids and the ones that they want to into the program. And it's finding, can you get more elite talent within that initial filter?
Yeah.
And you're starting to see it with guys like guys like Jermaine Terry, guys like David Anderson, and you're starting to see that. We already knew that was possible on the defense, but now we're seeing that play out a little bit more on the offensive side.
I mean, this is a class of Derek Wilkins and Akili Calhoun and Williams Orred. We're just talking about the skill players on offense. That shows how much this class can really make Cal as a college football program, because we have a defined ceiling. We're not going to be a blue blood. We don't have the history of Michigan or the institutional support of Michigan to be Michigan from the branch of highly athletic and academic schools, right? So what we do with this class can really elevate us to the level of top 25 competitors, and once in a while we'll get frisky, and we're all sitting here in October, so it's like, oh, we're undefeated, we're top 10. Oh God, is it college football playoff here?
Yeah.
But as they say, it's the hope that kills you.
This class overall, as you know, we're about to wrap up, is that this class now resets the bar for this program. And now the expectation, like 247 has us rated as the number 3 class in the Pac-12, only behind, I believe, USC and Oregon, which is insane to me to think about. So if that's the bar now, anything below this in terms of a recruiting year, you have to be, from a recruiting like ranking standpoint, you have to be competitive within the top 5 every year now. Like there's no excuse because you've built up that recruiting prowess to a certain degree now that you have to do that. Like this can't be a one-off. You have to consistently grow on this, and hopefully they do. But it also means that you got to start producing on the field with these kids.
We need to be 8-5
this year.
Yeah, this coming year, we got to be 8-5 and above.
Yeah,
and we got to stop turtling, right? Like, to bring up the theme of every live stream we've done for football, we got to stop turtling, right? Maximizing the usage of these kids will be critical for.
Hey, Coach Wilcox, you have J. Michael Sturdivant, Jeremiah Hunter, and Nico Remigio, and Jermaine Terry. It's second and 4. What do? You better not run the ball. You better not run the ball.
Can we not run the ball on 1st and 10 every single time we start off a drive? That's all I ask for.
It's like, don't Anthony Lynn this, okay? Don't Anthony Lynn this. Look at Anthony Lynn. Don't do that.
It feels like a personal attack on me as a Chargers fan. That feels very personal.
Look, I'm a Chiefs Niners fan. I don't have to complain about play calling.
You don't. I'm very upset. I get upset every time someone brings up Anthony Lynn. It's not fun.
They won yesterday. That's all that matters.
I don't want. I'm impressed that we won, but I don't want to talk about yesterday.
You out Chargers. Raiders out Chargers the Chargers.
in a season where the Chargers probably would have been better off losing.
Yeah.
I honestly. But all right, one last part before we close out the night. Other targets. Because there were a couple of guys that were on our radar for this week. We had, as Peter mentioned, Will Reed switched his allegiance to Princeton, and I believe it was for the academic reasons, and I'm all for it if that was his choice. That means that leaves a spot open on the offensive line that they probably would have wanted, and there's probably one or two more slots left, I believe. Wilcox did mention on Tuesday at his press conference, do we have any surprises in store for Wednesday? He said maybe 1, maybe 2. We did not get any of those surprises. The one guy that most Cal fans who follow recruiting know was a big target was Yanni Karlaftis out of Indiana. He ended up joining his big brother at Purdue. He's from West Lafayette, like it's super close to Purdue campus. So it makes perfect sense. I think if Peter said it best in our Slack channel, this was a case of if we had the opportunity to get him on an official visit, I think our chances would have been a lot higher. But the fact that he wasn't able to make a trip out west just means that he was going to stick to something maybe a little bit more comfortable and closer to home. And so he made that choice. So that means that we have some chance of some other guys that are available for us to go get. I think the one big name that is linked just because we have an offer out for him. I just looked at basically any of the 4 or 5 star guys that haven't committed that we've sent offers to and are like somewhat reasonable. I think the biggest one I think people are bringing up is, of course, Byron Cardwell, who's the 4-star running back from San Diego. I think that would be a huge plus. That would add to an already stacked running back room. Realistically, I mean, even if, let's say, Marcel Dancy and Bradrick Shaw were to move on, that still leaves Chris Brown Jr., DeCarlos Brooks, Chris Street, Damian Moore, Ashton Stredick, and then 4-star Byron Cardwell, and that would leave quite a few 4-star guys. That would be 4 4-star guys in that running backs room. So, kind of a little bit of a logjam at the running back spots. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them were to transfer at some point. So, but yeah, I think he's. I don't know about how high of a percentage I would say on him coming. I would say he would be the most likely candidate that they would try to push for. That's what I would say. Some of the other guys, like there's another dude, Sierra Wright, I believe. He's an athlete who had us in his final 10 or 12. He's not committing until, I believe, the All-American game in February, so we won't know anything about that. But he's also a guy, I don't think he'll commit to us. I think he'll end up committing to one of the LA schools, but he still has us listed, and who knows what can happen in a 2-month span.
Yeah,
so
I mean, 24/7 Sports has him soft committed to like medium confidence to go to SC, so anything could happen. I mean, SC's getting not mollywop, but are losing to Oregon right now, 28-17. With Byron Caldwell, though, it's a very interesting question to him, right? He's a 4-star athlete, high floor, high ceiling, but running backs don't want to play a lot in college because there is a mileage tax to every running back to go into the NFL. Right, and they rarely get a third contract. At best, you get a second contract if your legs are fresh and the GM thinks your legs are fresh. So when he comes to Cal, he has Damian Moore, DeCarlos Brooks, Chris Street, and Chris Brown Jr. as the potential guys ahead of him.
Right.
If Damian Moore keeps playing like he's playing, and one of the Chris Street and CBJ or DeCarlos Brooks are there, one of them is going to transfer out because they want to play at least 1 year for the senior year. So, do you take the gamble of saying, hey, I'll be 5th in the depth chart coming in as a running back, wait out 2 years to play my red shirt junior year, put on 1,300 yards and go to the NFL?
Yeah.
Or do you go to a school that will give you a opportunity maybe 2 years down the road so you can put on 2 years worth of tape and maybe build your rep?
Right. There's not, I mean, to be totally frank, like there aren't a lot of Justin Forsetts in the world now.
Yep.
Right. There aren't those guys that are going to sit behind the starter knowing that you have the potential to be a really good starter for 3 years before you get your shot. Like that's just not how college football plays around these days.
Yeah.
And if there are, you're very lucky to get one of those guys. So I think, your guess is as good as mine. But I would love to see him here. I think he'd be a very good fit. I think after CBJ is gone, which is probably in another year or two, that running backs room, in terms of style and body and running type, become very different.
Yeah.
Like I don't think we'll have a power back anymore. Like we're gonna have guys that have speed and agility more than they have power.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, those are the two guys I listed. Any other guys that come to your mind?
No, I just browsed for the list too, just to double check, and I think you covered it all.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other guys beyond that. So, well, that is our recruiting breakdown of the Cal 2021 recruiting class. Before we end, Christopher, do you have any since you came into this kind of blind, right? Like, what was your take on the class? Like, I know you're probably just as excited about J. Michael and maybe Jermaine Terry as all of us, but from what we've talked about, are there any guys from your just today that you're kind of excited for or hoping for to see?
Yeah. I mean, just overall thoughts first. As I was sort of listening to y'all break it down, we had, I think, 19 recruits in this class, right? By my count, there's 10 in the Bay Area / Sacramento area.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty impressive. I mean, they always talk about like hometown hero, like recruiting locally.
Right.
I think I counted another 3 within California. That's like this, I think the SoCal area. So, you know, that's a large chunk of a recruiting class. That's looking good to me.
Yeah, I believe it's 8 out of those recruits that we have are in the top 50 recruits in the state.
Yep.
Damn. Okay. All right. I mean, what I see. I think obviously my big, thought, here is, as we kind of talked about earlier, is keeping this recruiting consistency going for the next few years, right? And then, looking even a little further ahead, it's like, how does this class, develop enough to compete with the talent that you get at USC, the lines you have at Oregon, right? Like, can Derek Wilkins take on whomever Penei Sewell's successor is at Oregon and that O-line and whatnot. So that's what I'm looking out for. But I mean, I think in my mind, I'm big on the defense. I like, defense. And I mean, I like what Justin Wilcox has done over here. And just listening to what's going on that defensive line with all those, that recruit is really exciting. I think I'm really looking forward to seeing what Derek Wilkins does, what what's his name, Caleb Alarms or does, like, with his speed and whatnot. So I'm really excited for that line.
Yeah.
I mean, we could finally put Brett Johnson into his natural position as defensive end. Because if you watch the Oregon game, right, there was a couple of times when Oregon's just like, hey, we could, one-on-one Brett Johnson. That shouldn't be a problem. He bulldozes a guard of a Oregon team and suplexes the running back onto the ground, and Oregon's like, yeah, we're double teaming this guy. Like, imagine having to go against Stanley McKenzie at nose guard. I mean, it's another concern for us. It's like, we did not get a nose guard for this class. But we have McKenzie, Correa, and Maldonado right now. So we're 3 deep. It's just life happened. Yeah. We couldn't get them on the field. In a standard season, we would be able to. And then we have Brett Johnson one side, and hey, here's Derek Wilkins with his ridiculous first step. And if he's tired, hey, Akili Calhoun, not that bad either. Oh, Brett Johnson needs a brief. How about Akili Calhoun and Derek Wilkins on the outside? Yeah. Cam Good or Patrick Kisaki. And pass rush. College football does not have a salary cap, so you can invest in pass rush and not have to pay for it. And considering the way the defensive backfield has played under the Wilcox regime, I feel bad for the Pac-12 defenses, man. Offenses, man.
Yeah. I mean, I do really starting to see how that, like, 2 deep is coming out, right? Like, I think injuries have been critical for us the last few years, and seeing that 2 deep starting to come through will be definitely pretty exciting. I do like being the defense that, like, you get, Pac-12 quarterback tapes on when they're being evaluated for NFL. Yeah. I think that's super fun.
Yeah.
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 The last thing I'll say about this class is that if you look at, I haven't looked at rivals, but looking at 247, every position group that we talked about today, at least one of those guys is in the top 50 of their position.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Jermaine Terry is, I believe, 6th at his position. J. Michael is 24th. Maven is 45th. Kai is 17th. Akili Calhoun is 22nd. Derek Wilkins is 25th. Caleb Alarms Orr is 28th. Caleb Higgins is 46th. Bastion Swinney is 31st. Moses Oladejo is 47th. There's a top 50 at each position that we've gotten this cycle, which that is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Like,
now it comes down to coaching.
Right, exactly. Because, even if you're going through any of these recruiting sites and you're just going through, like, the player breakdowns of, like, each position for a recruiting class, like, you'll see Cal on the first page now.
Yeah.
You have to go to that second page and move forward. So I think that's huge. I honestly, people underestimate like like search engine optimization. Like having your name up there is very, very big, especially for all these recruits and seeing them. So
I'm hype.
I'm hyped. I'm
Yeah,
hyped.
Yeah.
I'm hyped, and we got like 8 months before like we even get to see anything. Actually, spring football when that comes around, so we have that. But even then, it's like we still got at least 2 or 3 months before spring football comes around.
Yeah, and while you're waiting for spring football, feel free to read Right for California content on women's and men's basketball, other Berkeley related shenanigans, and tap into our streams.
That's pretty much what it is. I'm gonna check one thing before we end here. Who our early enrollees are gonna be? According to Cal Rivals, these are the early enrollees from the class: Hunter Barth, Achille Calhoun, Caleb Higgins, Patrick Isatake, Jermaine Terry, Nate Rachina, Bastion Swinney, and Ryan Lang.
Nice.
Ooh.
That's a very good early entry class because you get your number 1 tight end.
Yep.
You probably get your number 1 cornerback in this class. You probably get your number 1 outside linebacker in this class. And you probably get your most impactful defensive line in on this class.
Nice.
I think we're good to go, guys. I'm ready. I'm ready for Cal football to start.
We're going 15-0, baby.
15-0.
Cheers to that. Well, thank you, gents, for joining this evening. I appreciate your time to talk about this. As you people know, we're the Right for California staff. You can see all our socials everywhere. You can find all of us, read all our stuff on rightforcalifornia.com. And I believe that's it. And with that, we bid you